Hi, everyone. Before we get started with this episode, I want to share something really exciting with you. I have a deep passion for helping people turn their dreams into goals and then get those goals across the finish line. I've just launched a new online, on-demand version of my program, Finish It. And as a special gift to Leadership Rediscovered listeners, I'm offering 15% off the program price. Go to wvshine.com/finishit and enter the code LR15 at checkout. But don't wait. I want you to finish your goals now and not someday. So this course is only staying open for a little while and then I'm shutting it down. Go sign up now so you can finish it. Welcome to Leadership Rediscovered. I'm your host, Laura Siebold, and today I am tickled to death to have my very dear friend and former running partner, Dr. Liz Vitullo. Dr. Liz Vitullo holds a dual role at West Virginia University, serving as the Assistant Dean for Strategic Initiatives at the John Chambers College of Business and Economics, and she's the Assistant Vice President of Economic Innovation. Vitullo brings experience in economic development, grant writing, higher education, and community outreach. She supports special projects and initiatives for the university and is well positioned to connect WVU resources into this effort. She is passionate about education and serves as the coordinator of the Healthcare MBA program. Prior to her current role, Vitullo managed the portfolio of graduate programs in the John Chambers College of Business and Economics, launching its nationally ranked online MBA, which led to the creation of subsequent nationally ranked online master's programs and other specialized programs for National Guardsmen and corporate offerings. She was part of the inaugural cohort of IDEA Fellows at WVU and served as the Dean of the Governor's School for Entrepreneurship. Vitullo received her PhD and MBA from WVU and her undergraduate and MS degree from the University of Toronto. She has served as an adjunct faculty in entrepreneurship, marketing, and management and has published in several areas. She lives in Morgantown with her husband, 2 daughters, and son. And she's my dear friend. Did I mention that yet? I am so excited to do this with you today.
Oh, this is so awesome. You're so awesome.
One of my first friends from West Virginia when I moved here. And I'm just so grateful that you're here with me today.
That was a long time ago.
I know.
And you haven't changed one bit.
You haven't changed.
Oh, my gosh.
At all. Actually, you've just glowed a little bit more. You've grown up, not grown up. You've grown up.
I've got to use that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. You are an amazing person doing amazing work. And in my humble opinion, you fly very low under the radar most of the time. And to that, I say, no more. So, would you please do us the honor of taking a very deep and thorough dive into your leadership journey so that everyone can get to know you the way I know you?
Oh my gosh. Well, first, I think this is just such an awesome podcast. I love watching the other guests and I'm honored to be here. And it's just amazing to see you take this on. I remember your first one and I celebrated it. I was so excited.
Thank you.
So I thought about this. So kind of my leadership journey started with finding my voice. And I was a scared, nervous child.
Interesting.
So much so that we were talking about the red flush that comes up when you're. So when I was a little kid, if an adult would speak to me, I couldn't even utter a word. I would turn and run away.
Really?
Right. And so now counter that with right.
Fast forward to adulthood, you've grown a lot from that.
So a watershed moment was in grade 9 in high school in Toronto, student council elections.
Oh.
And I really, really wanted to participate. And I was so nervous. And I had this amazing girlfriend, much like, you embody the same things that she has. And she said, okay, you're going to do this. And we kind of synced my speech to, that song, Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got up there, gave my speech in front of the entire, student body, got off stage, threw up.
But you got through it.
I got through it and I won.
That's
my
awesome.
grade 9. It was a grade 9 rep. But that was such a monumental shift for me. And it made me realize I could do something. I found a voice. It was a little bit muted, but I did it.
Yeah.
And then, so that encouraged me to take on as many opportunities, even if I was uncomfortable. The more uncomfortable I was, I knew that in my heart of hearts, even though, again, I wanted to throw up, that it was going to advance me.
Wow.
The other big part of my leadership journey was being a bartender and a waitress. So my mom was a professional bartender at an Irish pub.
That's awesome.
And she helped me get my first job. And I was a server, and I just was very quiet and very, again, just polite. And then fast forward where I was then helping bartend and, sometimes manage different spaces. You have to find your voice when you're cutting off a 300-pound man or breaking up a bar fight or, really listening to what they want.
Yeah, you're kind of like a therapist too sometimes.
It was just really interesting because I kind of came out of my shell, especially when I was bartending, because that bar provided this kind of like comfortable barrier.
Yes.
And so I could start a conversation. I could, engage.
Space
I could engage. There. I could get a sense of what they wanted. I could check in with, how their day was. And then I could have multiple conversations. Yeah. And so that really helped me, if people said, what was that one job, that one experience? It was bartending. From there, I had great experiences in university. I found my way to West Virginia, fell in love with West Virginia, started working at the business school with different graduate programs. And where I think I also, was very intentional. I would put my hands up for things that no one else wanted to do or try to just kind of, I don't know if insert the word is the right word, but, if there was a space and it needed to be filled, I tried to do that. And it caused me to step out of my comfort zone. It caused me to learn new things. And so, and it just became kind of a natural shift. And I think I became the go-to person on certain things. There was just an expectation. Okay, well, if you need something done.
Liz knows how to do that.
Liz can help and Liz can, do X, Y, and Z. And so with the online MBA program that we launched, seems like ages ago, we were still kind of on the early wave of online programs. But that was my first kind of step into, okay, I'm going to do this. I kind of got the buy-in of people that needed to buy in. And I slowly made that happen. And when I realized that, I remember it launching. I remember our inaugural cohort. They were rock stars. And I thought, okay, I helped build this. Yeah. I helped do this. Now, fast forward to some of the things that I'm doing with economic development activities. There's so many things that I'm involved in that I'm just so proud of because we've got such incredible teams. But the Ascend West Virginia program, I know you had Elise Smith here.
Yes. And we actually didn't talk about Ascend
my gosh,
on the podcast. So feel free because it is a phenomenal program.
West Virginia is such an incredibly well-kept secret, and we need to
peel. I love that. You're so right.
we gotta peel the curtain away.
Needs to come out.
and people are moving to the state. They're discovering and rediscovering the beauty that exists here, and more so, it's the quality of life too. Yes. And so, Elise Smith and her husband Brad Smith, they co-founded this incredible nonprofit, Wing to Wing. Brad and Elise also lead Marshall University. And it was a number of years ago. This was before Brad became the president. President Smith became President Smith.
Right.
He was studying, the transition, the landscape of work. And we got into this conversation about remote work. And so he engaged a team at WVU to stand up what is now the Ascend West Virginia program, where we are bringing people from around the U.S. and around the globe to live here. The landscape of work has changed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much more remote work.
So much more remote, and people can work and be where they want to be. And so we introduced people along with the Department of Tourism, which does a fabulous job of really showcasing the beauty of West Virginia. It sells itself.
Yeah.
And so the remote Ascend West Virginia is stood up. There's 4 of the locations. There's going to be 5 in total. Have been announced. But yes, Brad and Elise have been just, they are the foundation on which that was built, and this incredible team that now exists and runs the program. So these are the types of things that I get to do. Like this is like my job, that I get to help stand up these efforts. Yeah. Teams get built around them, and then I kind of move to the next thing. And then I come back and check in, and as we're iterating and building it, like the Ascend West Virginia program, we're looking at different verticals. Oh. How do we bring very specific populations back in? And so more to come on that. But, so I come in and out of these amazing efforts, and get to, add my 2 cents, maybe support some creativity, innovation, operationalize it, and then move on. Yeah. And so
you're pretty much just still filling these gaps. Well, like you did so many years ago.
I like to be at the party,
Yes.
And it's one thing that I've learned that you don't have to know everything. You can just bring your skill set to the table, and usually that translates into some cool things. So my job right now as the assistant dean for strategic initiatives at the John Chambers College of Business and Economics, and the assistant vice president for economic innovation. I know it's a mouthful, but they intersect so beautifully. We help operationalize our land grant mission at WVU. We help bring the resources, the incredible resources at WVU, to state efforts, especially in the economic development space. We work closely with other academic institutions, other nonprofits, so cool. There's some really cool things that are happening in the state right now. And so, my portfolio of projects is kind of all over the place. And when you hear it, they don't sound interconnected, but they absolutely are. I'm helping with a broadband initiative with the state.
Yes. Do you know I have fiber at my house now?
That's fantastic.
This is a big deal, especially so that you don't have to hear me complain about this anymore. But
well, we are doing listening sessions, so we do want to hear.
I'm happy. No complaints now. But I mean, that is for people listening who do not live in West Virginia, not from West Virginia. Internet access has been a challenge because you've got some really geographically tough locations,
the topography,
a lot of rural areas, and it's just not as simple as what some people might think, depending on where they live, to get access to internet. And if you're trying to promote business and just especially people just to live here or work remotely here, it's a huge component of being able to do that successfully. So that's a big project, and I know you've been working on it for quite a while. Well, but it's starting to really take off, I think.
Well, the Office of Broadband at the state level is leading the charge with some incredible partners, and there is historic investments that are going into this space right now through the BEAD and DE program. So the Broadband Access Deployment, Equity Access Deployment program, along with a digital equity program. And digital equity is so important because
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well,
I don't think I've heard this term,
and
digital
so
equity.
It's not just about having access to the internet. It's knowing how to use it. It's having the equipment to do so. It's knowing how to get online, how to engage in these activities. Because you think about the internet, it's a utility.
Yes.
Like it's part of our day-to-day lives, like, and the pandemic really highlighted that.
Yes, especially I think for children.
Oh my gosh.
When you had the remote learning going on, and it was like, okay, we'll just send all these kids home with iPads. And then it's like, well, wait a second. First of all, we don't know if they have access to internet where they're going. And we don't know if it's, grandparents who are raising them who don't know how to use some of this equipment.
Exactly.
And it was a much bigger challenge than I think people even realized that they were up against.
It really elevated a lot of inequities.
Yeah.
And so this digital equity program is speaking specifically to that, with focus on different covered populations that they refer to. And it's different groups that, have historically been left behind, or groups that haven't may not necessarily have the tools, whether it's seniors, minorities, previously incarcerated, veterans. So there's a whole list of that this program aims to target specifically, so that as you're building out the infrastructure, you're building out the tools and the training to support those that it raises everybody up in society.
And you can take advantage of the infrastructure that's being built.
Right. So that's one effort. The other effort that I'm incredibly excited about is we're standing up a grant center between WVU and Marshall. So, WVU and Marshall and other institutions, you're really feeling the synergy across higher education. And you have to. Like we're a small state. There's always going to be this competition.
Yes.
But we're going to go faster. We're going to go further, faster together.
Yes.
And so with our partners at Marshall, we stood up a grant center to support nonprofits, state entities, different groups in pursuing this huge amount of federal funding that currently exists. And the Grant Center focuses on economic prosperity, economic development initiatives. And so if you often, for example, you think about a nonprofit, they don't have the bandwidth and resources to like they're wearing 10 hats as it is.
Yes. The grant applications are extensive and complicated, and
it's been an education. Like talk about learning a whole new language, skill set, etc. The Grant Center aims to assist these groups in pursuing federal funding, and it's all free.
Wow.
And so
So like if I wanted to start a nonprofit,
yes,
I could leverage this Grant Center to help me apply for federal funding, state funding too, or just federal?
State, federal, private foundations.
Wow.
So, but think about your nonprofit. Let's say it aligns with, with Shine. Let's say it's a workforce effort.
Hypothetically, let's say I wanted to have a camp for women that teaches them how to be CEOs.
Well, that's an amazing idea.
Thanks.
But that's a workforce initiative. And so workforce translates directly into economic development, economic prosperity. So that's the type of project we would take on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And so we have this small army of grant writers across WVU and Marshall.
So cool.
And we meet weekly. We review what we're working on. We currently have 43 requests for assistance. We launched in January. This is through an ARC Power Grant.
Oh, okay.
Support from the state and, of course, support from WVU and Marshall. And we socialized this idea with a lot of nonprofits in the state. And we wanted to make sure that we were not replicating services.
Yes.
Because you've got
There's
different...
some of that going on right now. So
right.
Very smart.
So we wanted to work in the gaps. And so we even work with grant writers, like who are engaged with a client. But for example, they need data on the economic impact of what their initiative would do. So really making it a data-driven proposal, strengthening the proposal. So we don't necessarily need to come in and write a grant for someone. Maybe they just need a series of templates of letters of support.
Wow.
Maybe they need some help with their budget. Maybe they need a technical review. That's where we kind of meet them where they are.
Very cool.
So that's another effort.
Can you share I know you said about 43. Do you know what that translates to dollars wise?
Not off the top of my head, but that would be a great stat. So thank you for suggesting that.
You're welcome. I'm just curious about.
But we are going to do annual reports
very
for,
cool.
of course, the granting agency and for the state
to show the impact too. I'm
sure.
Yeah,
we've got about a 3-year kind of window to develop this proof of concept.
Amazing.
And so, we just have an amazing team who happen to all be women, actually.
Very cool.
That are just phenomenal. Like we had our weekly meeting yesterday. You just leave energized.
Yeah.
Like
that's really, I would think, fulfilling work, knowing that you're a part of, because think about, there's a lot of folks I think that have great ideas, whether it's an entrepreneurial for-profit type idea or more in the nonprofit space, but there's certain barriers that exist for them that they can't maybe it's just too overwhelming for them, or they just don't feel like they have what it takes, or I don't know how to write a grant, so therefore I'm just going to give up on this idea. And now it's like, no, you can get support.
We want to remove those barriers. Yeah. We want to help resource these initiatives. We want to bring coalitions together. We want to do a lot of things that, there's already so much great momentum happening in the state. We're just trying to develop these grant ecosystem, if you will. And so, so there's so many efforts that I get to be part of.
Yeah.
And they all sound different, but they all intersect.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad that you brought up the collaboration, because I know I've talked about it on this podcast before, but I'm just blown away by the collaboration amongst very heavy hitters from across the state and the institutions of higher education working together. Because again, if I put my business hat on, I'm like, these are competitors. On paper, to me, you're competing for a lot of the same resources. And yet they've come together to really show, I think, a great learning opportunity for all of us of what can happen when you join forces and work towards a common goal together. And you're starting to see the fruits of that labor, because I think a lot of these coalitions have been in place for several years, and now it's really that flywheel starting to move.
Yes.
And it's really cool to see what's happening from it.
Well, it starts at the top, and you see President Gee and President Smith. They have this. I don't know, it's not a formal entity, but they call it Universities United.
Oh, that's so cute. I like that.
They had these little cookies that connected the two different logos, and it was awesome. And during the legislative session, there was a great event where it brought WVU and Marshall together. The mascots, everyone, talking about some of these initiatives that we're trying to engage with together to solve some of the challenges that the state faces. It's one of those things that is trickling down and being operationalized in very specific efforts.
Yeah. Well, and that was another thing I was curious about. And I know we've also got John Chambers and Sarah Biller and a lot of other amazing, don't want to leave them out, and all of the entrepreneurial startup type work that's happening too in the state. But what are the supporting goals or goals that are anchoring a lot of these initiatives? What's kind of underpinning the collaboration, would you say, in terms of overall what types of outcomes are, the president's, what did you call it? The Universities United.
Yes.
What are some of the goals in terms of what they're trying to accomplish by uniting? Are you able to share some of that?
Well, some of the things, one of the big things I think both universities have an eye on is keeping our young people here.
Yes.
And so there's some efforts around that. President Gee jokingly talks about, the fence he's building around the state to keep our folks in. But it kind of connects into the entrepreneurial efforts, the outdoor assets. Like, we need to create a reason for people to stay.
Yes.
And honestly, the reasons are already there.
Yes.
It's just we need to tell our story a lot better. And that's why these podcasts and Positively West Virginia and these other efforts are so important.
Yeah.
And it's not a matter of translating it within the state. It's translating it out to the rest of the country and globally. Like, this is an amazing place to be.
Yes.
There are so many job opportunities. There's so many emerging areas. Entrepreneurial efforts are really coalescing. Like, they're coming together.
Yes.
You referenced Vantage. You referenced Sarah.
Yeah.
John Chambers set this vision. He invited a number of state leaders out to his house, I think it was 4 years ago. And
I think you were there.
So
seeing your face in those pictures.
There was a lot of incredible people there, and
keep going.
And so and he created this vision or articulated this vision of this startup state, and we're starting to see that. A recent article looked at stats on business startups, and they were looking at year-over-year startups. West Virginia's at 90%. They were third in the overall rankings.
Yes.
We can say that, and there's tremendous things are happening here.
Awesome.
We have historic investments, especially in the energy space. You look at healthcare, you look at how we're solving healthcare rural problems in the space of rural healthcare.
Yes.
We have world-class facilities, world-class people. And so, so the secret is getting out there. And you think about bring it back to Ascend, where the goal is to have 1,000 remote workers here.
Oh, very cool.
And so you bring, and we have our cohorts launched in a couple of different places, especially Morgantown and Lewisburg. Those are the two, or the Greenbrier Valley. Yeah. And so, but the other places are accepting applications, bringing people on. But it's through these individuals. Some of them are coming back home.
Yes.
And some of them are completely brand new to the state.
Wow.
They're translating our story back.
Yes.
And so it's amazing. So I digress. But the Universities United really helps to bring universities support and resources where it makes sense, because our academic mission is core.
Absolutely.
But we're training all these people, and then they're leaving the state.
Yes.
And some of them, some people have goals about being different places, and we want them to realize their goals.
Yeah.
We don't want people to leave because they don't realize they can stay.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want people to say, I have to leave. I don't want to leave. I love it here and I have my family here, but I feel like in order to accomplish my goals, I have to leave.
Or this has now become home.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
And I think that was the narrative for so many decades where, I don't know if it was parents translating it, but this idea that I have to leave to be successful.
Yeah.
No, you can be successful here, and you can, rise up with what's happening in the state. So I think at the core, that's one thing that really I think has become a rallying cry for the universities.
Yes. It's exciting though.
It's so exciting.
I was thinking about that on my drive in here this morning because it is a really exciting time. I mean, you and I are both West Virginians by choice.
Yes.
I stole that line from David Goldberg and I love it because we were not born and raised here, but we've chosen to live here and we love it. And we see all of the wonderful things about West Virginia. And so we share that passion, I think, of wanting other people to realize, hey, this can be a great life for you too.
Yes.
And I feel like it is starting to get out. Like I think about there's companies that are being founded here with founders who none of them are from West Virginia. And they could have located their business anywhere across the country and scouted out several states and ultimately chose to come here. And the more we see that, to your point about especially the Ascend program and bringing people in, it's not just keeping West Virginians here, but it's also inspiring people from other locations to say, hey, why not try West Virginia? Why not live here? Why not work here?
I think Appalachia's cool, and I think rural is cool. And you're seeing this investment in these places because, there's a grit, there's a resiliency, there are things that can be done here, and I think people are realizing the opportunities that exist, and so it's a. I was at a conference earlier this week, and I used this term that I think we're at an inflection point, and someone kind of corrected me, and they said, "No, I think we're further up the hockey stick." Like, with the Canadian reference, I appreciate that. I think Canadian hockey, maple syrup, I'm all about.
Yeah. And share the love of maple syrup.
And ketchup chips. No one brings that one up.
I know. They are very good.
But, I think we're really starting to see the fruits of a lot of people's labors. And people are, it's this momentum. It's this people working together. It's this, one of the things that people tout about West Virginia, you can get all of the decision makers into, they say a phone booth, but I don't know if that's true. But you have this connectivity to people.
Yes.
People will take your call. People will meet with you. People will make introductions for you.
Yes.
People will show up.
Yes.
And I don't think that's true of a lot of places.
No, because there's also just the people here. I mean, we've talked a lot about the landscape and how beautiful geographically it is here, but also just the people. I mean, that's what I love is the warmth and the spirit of the people here.
So I laugh because I'm going to turn this into a running story.
Please do.
So first off, this woman is the reason I've would ever, run more than a 5K. Like you tricked me into it.
Yes.
And you tricked me into it by, conversing with me the whole time. It was incredible.
Yes.
But I was running at a half in a couple weeks.
Yes.
I'm going to run it very slowly.
She's
but
very much downplaying this. Liz is running a half marathon, and that is the big deal.
So much. But I was running on the Duckers Creek Trail, that downhill.
Oh, yeah.
Husband dropped me off at the top. There's only one way to get home.
You have to run the 13.1 miles down the hill to get home.
And he looks at me, and I got my little bottle of water, and he's like, is that all the water you brought? And I'm like, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was hot Sunday.
Yes,
and
you're right.
So he's like, are you sure? Like, we can stop? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good. 5 miles in, like I'm sweating.
Yeah, I'm not good.
And there's this much water, and I'm thinking, oh crap, I'm not good. But
there's like no cell service there anyway. So again, you just have to run home.
So you talk about the warmth of the people. Yeah. So I look over, and there are these beautiful houses that sometimes spud up against the trail, and there was this wonderful woman. And she had a hose, and she was cleaning off something. And I stopped, and I said, ma'am, would you fill up my water bottle with your hose?
This is how you know we're also of the same generation. We drink hose water.
And she said, "Oh, honey, it's hot out here, isn't it?" And I said, "Yes, it is." And I said, "If you don't mind, I'm sorry to bother you." And she said, "Oh, no, let me go get you a cold one."
Oh.
So she ran inside, got me a cold bottle of water. She said, "Do you want me to discard of your other one?"
That's West Virginia.
That's the people here. And I said, "You are just my running angel this morning."
I love it.
And I said, "I will pay it for you." She said, "Come back anytime."
I might see you here next
Oh my
Sunday.
goodness. But you know, it's that old adage, if you break down, you want to break down in West Virginia. And so there's just this generosity of spirit that exists here that translates in so many ways.
Yes.
Yeah. So
love it. That's a great story. Thanks for sharing that.
I knew you'd appreciate it.
Yes. Well, and I was thinking we've run that path together many times.
Yes.
And I was sad that I wasn't there to hand you something to drink. Sorry that you were there by yourself.
Okay.
All right. I want to switch gears a little bit because, again, you are involved in so many great projects, but you also tend to talk more about the projects and the other people and not so much about yourself. So I want to hear, this podcast is all about just bringing forth different leaders from different industries, different walks of life to talk about their unique definition of leadership, their unique leadership style. And so I want to hear that part of your story as well. And maybe if we can just start with, what is Liz Vitula, Dr. Liz Vitula? You worked hard for that doctor title. What is your definition of leadership?
So it's changed over the years, because leadership to me used to be about getting something done. You know, and it was not just like creating a vision is amazing, and building a team around it. But then you've got to really, you know, I used this word before, but operationalize or execute.
Yeah.
It's like getting A to Z is
yes.
You can talk about it, but you got to get B, C, D, E, etc. And so leadership as for a long time was kind of that translation of those steps.
Yes.
And
how to actually get it done.
And the pivots and the reminding people of, you know, where we were going. Leadership now is that kind of like more of the unknown to some extent.
Ooh.
And what I mean by that is so many efforts and initiatives that I've had the great pleasure of supporting and leading in some capacity have been areas that I might not know a lot about initially, but I'm bringing my skill set to the table.
Yes.
And translating that into this larger effort, this larger vision, that allows everyone to kind of like grow together. And so I don't know if I said that very succinctly, but it's this translation, it's this leaning in, it's this growth, it's this becoming a stronger group, individual. Yes. Yeah. So that kind of has been, you know, when I think about my definition of leadership and how I personally, you know, adapted or have adapted to it, that's really what is at the core of it for me, is this kind of evolving of, and personally it's just my opportunity to learn.
Yes. And then figure out how you can contribute given your skill set.
Exactly. And then your skill set evolves.
Yes.
It's just amazing the things that I've learned so much about in the last couple months.
Yeah.
From, you know, efforts with broadband, efforts, rare earth elements. Like there's just so many cool things.
That's amazing.
That are happening. And you add that to your repertoire, to your portfolio, and then you see these intersections.
Yes.
And then you get to connect the dots.
Yes.
And so it's that connection of dots that I think I'm good at.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that if I was to brag on one thing about myself, I can
Please
see
do.
I can see how things I feel that I can see how things connect.
Yes.
And I can bring those things together, even though they may be all the way in left field. But there is a relevance, and it becomes a stronger effort because, you know, I know if this group is doing this, or this translates into, you know, another effort that we were working on.
Yeah.
Or I read something about this.
Yeah.
And so that dot connecting is actually really fun for me because it's just like you almost hear the synapses in your brain.
Yeah, it's like a little
off.
puzzle coming together.
Yeah, going off. And it's always in this kind of like meditative state where I'm either like gardening or cooking or I might be running. That some of these things get translated, or it's in these incredible conversations with these teams where like we're just kind of brainstorming and seeing what sticks and these ideas, themes emerge. So yeah,
I love that though. And I remember one time I was listening to a book and the author, I think it was Danny Meyer, who is a restaurateur, so different industry, but he was talking about the superior customer service that his staff delivers. And he was talking a lot about connecting the dots, but he said in order to connect the dots, you have to collect dots first.
That's so well said.
Yes. And I thought, I had such an aha moment from that, because when I think about the skill sets that are valued typically in the workplace, it's people who can connect the dots, who can think forward, who can be strategic and recognize, if we do all these things here, this is what could ultimately happen, and scenario planning and all of that. And I think there's a lot of people that aspire to be a dot connector, but the first step is you've got to learn all of the different pieces. And I think that's a really important part of the story that we don't realize. It takes time. It takes stepping into uncomfortable situations, going out of your comfort zone, learning about things that maybe you've not done before, don't know anything about. Rare earth elements. Can't even say it. That sounds interesting. An area I'm not real familiar with, but being able to say, all right, I'm going to step in and learn something. And then the power of being able to use that later on in a different context.
Well, and it's the relationships.
Yes.
And so, and it's having those authentic relationships.
Yes.
So that you're not just calling someone when you need something, which we've all done, but
sure.
Hopefully there's a precursor to this so that I can find out what you do.
Yes.
Like, what are your challenges? What are your big efforts, initiatives? How can we work together?
Yes.
And so those are some of my favorite conversations where there's no kind of like goal or end in mind or outcome specifically, but you come away with those conversations from like, wow, they're doing really cool things. And then you think about, you're in another conversation like, hey, there's this person, there's this guy, there's this girl, and
you two need to meet, or you need to work together,
or like, hey, I'm working on this grant proposal, and I know that you're starting something,
right?
And so, and the cool part about my work is that I get to do this across the state, and I've just met so many like people that are changing the game, from people in Bluefield, people in the New River Gorge. Mingo County, Eastern Panhandle, there's just so much.
Yeah. It's so exciting. If I think about you from the perspective of you lead projects, but you also lead people. So how would you describe your leadership style overall?
So it's interesting because like when I onboard someone, I kind of have this little saying or this thing about, when we build a team and how we engage in our work. I want someone who like we sometimes we put on these big events where you've got like 500 people that are coming and you've got to do the big thing where you're introducing things. My leadership style and what I hope for my team and people that I work with is that, yes, you can stand up in front of those 500 people and welcome and do the big thing, but you're also wiping the table in preparation for. So I will wipe the table.
Yes.
So that, as people are being received, they are seeing a set up space and then, hopefully walk up to the podium and say, welcome everyone.
Right.
And go into whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's that kind of translation of, not to anchor it in those two roles, but do what needs to be done.
Yes.
To make the thing happen.
Yes.
And so
and that's not always glamorous.
No, it's not.
It's wiping tables a lot.
Oh my God. The amount of schlepping that I have done in my career is just, and it's not just me. Like there are a lot of people there, but it's all the behind the scenes. It's all the advanced work. It's the late nights.
Things that people don't see.
That are so important.
But it is. Yeah. And I really think about that a lot, especially with the new generations that are coming into the workforce. And just, I think sometimes the ideas they have about what work will be like for them, what they're going to be able to accomplish. I think there are a lot more people that are interested in the entrepreneurial story and the startup story. But I think a lot of times things get perceived as overnight success stories. You know, I got to do a training session at the Four Seasons this week, and they put me up. It was for they put me up. Yeah,
in the such a hard gig
in the Four Seasons. I know, and it was incredible. And so if I had just like maybe put a LinkedIn post of like, here I am at this amazing property, doing really cool things. What people didn't know is that then I had to drive like 6 hours home in a not great rental car, and you know, eating like cheese sticks for my dinner and all of those things behind the scenes that people don't see. I'm like, look how glamorous that job is. And it's like, ugh. But there's also the like getting home at midnight and the schlepping that you were talking about, that I think we don't talk enough about that side of work and that side of success, and the fact that that is a huge aspect and element to success. It's not just glamorous all the time.
And I think, you know, as leaders, you need to model or tell that story. And, you know, things, sure, there are some overnight successes, but they're rare, they're few and far between. It's the cheese stick, it's the driving, it's the which equates to the Four Seasons.
Right.
Is an important trajectory and story that should be told. Yes. So I can see almost like Laura along the way in her little car, chewing on her cheese stick.
With my sweatpants and sneakers. And I literally said to the gentleman that checked me in, I don't feel like I look like I belong here right now, because I just I didn't match.
You absolutely belong everywhere. I just want to put that lobby. But it's an important thing to do. It's that modeling. It's telling the story. There's a grit that just needs to happen with this. And so I agree wholeheartedly. These are things that we need to translate into these young leaders.
Yeah.
And, you know, seeing some of the students that come through WVU and some of the other institutions, they have this grit. It's different, and I think that's why a lot of employers, our students are sought after.
Yes, yeah, which is exciting, and especially if the employers are located in West Virginia.
Amen.
Which you're working on bringing more of them,
right?
So.
Or connecting them to remote work elsewhere. You know, like so there's so many things possibilities to keep these people here.
Yeah. So I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I didn't realize that you've been at WVU for
a while.
Years, I think. Which, holy smokes, that's a long time, and you've done a lot. You've had a lot of different roles in that time.
It's been a long time, and you know it's amazing though. It feels like it's a number of lifetimes that are kind of interconnected with different jobs.
Yes,
but the one thing I can honestly say, and you know, in the 90% time frame, work doesn't feel like work.
Yeah,
like I just love what I do.
That's amazing.
And the university and the state has afforded me so many opportunities that I am so grateful for. To work with such incredible people, to work on such important projects, to get to do some really cool things, and my position has evolved, and you know, some of it is because I've been very intentional, and some people have said, hey, you know, you may be good to do this. And so I've had great people along the way. I've had great opportunities. I've worked with great teams, and I'm just very proud of the work that's being done at the university.
That's incredible. As you think about, rewind 19 years, Liz, not Dr. Liz yet.
No.
Just Liz starting out at WVU to now. How has your leadership changed? How has it evolved from that beginning point to where you stand now?
On the front end, I was just trying to figure stuff out, and and there were great people that, you know, maybe saw some potential. Like we both adore Dr. Speaker, Paul Speaker.
Yes,
he hired me at the university after I did my MBA, and he gave me incredible opportunities, and that just opened a lot of doors. I am more worried today about giving other people those opportunities. Ooh. And there's so many, especially, you know, young professionals, period, but there's so many incredible young women that are really just making big things happen. And I never want to assume that I'm a mentor per se, but I want to be a resource for them,
Yeah.
an advocate for them.
Yeah.
I want to celebrate them.
So nice.
I want to be able to, when they're not in the room, I want to be able to say, do you know that so-and-so is doing this? Do you know that they accomplished this? And then also when you see people kind of going slightly the wrong direction,
Yes.
offering constructive feedback.
Yes.
Because a few times in my life, I was given that constructive feedback and it caused me to pause. You never want to hear that you're doing something wrong.
No, but if you care, and I know you do, you're very conscientious and you want to do a good job, it is so helpful to get that feedback when it comes from a good place.
Right. And so you have to be able to absorb it, listen to it, and then actually kind of put it into action. And sometimes it's like kind of a whole process that you got to go through. Like
we have to go through like a grieving process,
right,
actually.
Like, did I really do that? Did
I
really
don't agree with this feedback.
Yeah.
Maybe I do. Now what do I do with it?
And so it's this kind of like range of from offering that constructive feedback to celebrating to really advancing to, bringing them into the fold when there are opportunities that are coming up and you need to build your team. And so that's what I'm thinking about now too, because you've got this incredible group of leaders at the university, within the state. How do we really kind of empower them, engage them so that they can then do, like there's this whole ripple effect.
Yeah. And I love that you brought that up because of this, to me, that talks about sponsorship and the importance of sponsorship of other people. And that was a concept that I experienced, but didn't know the language for. I didn't know that was a term, sponsorship, until several years ago. I was like, oh, I've been the recipient of that. I've been positively impacted by somebody else before me saying, you know what, Laura, I don't need to go to this meeting with that executive. You know this information. You go to the meeting and you go knock it out of the park and really have the opportunity to meet different people, to network, to build those relationships. And I think being able to talk about people like that, especially when they're not in the room, or giving credit for work that's being done, which I know you're very good at anyway, just naturally you're inclined to be that way. But being able to say, hey, this was not just me that put this out. This was a collaborative effort of all of these people here, and saying their names and recognizing their work, whether they're in the room or not in the room. That is massive. And finding those opportunities and tapping people on the shoulder and saying, hey, I feel like most of the jobs that I had in my corporate career were not jobs I applied for. It was someone just coming up to me and saying, hey, we think you would be really good in this role over here. Are you interested? And just stepping into it and saying, okay, I'll try it. I'm interested in learning. I'll see what I can do. And just having someone there to acknowledge you and support you and say, oh, hey, here's a possible path for you. I don't think that's talked about enough either.
And I'm still receiving the benefits of that sponsorship.
Yeah.
I report up to some great people at the university, with a dual role. I have multiple bosses. Yeah. Which is great, actually, because there's just more people to talk to and engage. Yeah. So I work with Dean Josh Hall at the Chambers College and General Hoyer at the president's office. Cool. And both are just incredible about saying, hey, can you go and do X? Yeah. And specifically with the economic development activity, General Hoyer has been phenomenal. Like, hey, can you take this meeting? Can you be part of this conversation? Can you put your eyes on this? And so it's kind of a never ending, you provide that sponsorship and people are still providing that sponsorship to you. Yes. And so I'm very grateful for those opportunities.
That's amazing. And I love that you're giving them to other people too. And the feedback piece, because that's important too.
Yeah, that's one thing that, difficult conversations. And I know this kind of goes back to something that Elise was, her whole event is being built off. Yeah. Those are the most difficult things to do. Yes. Like most people don't naturally want to engage in conflict or tell people, hey, you're not doing something
you missed
right.
the mark on that one.
Yeah. And so, but that is in some ways could be the greatest gift.
Yes.
And so having those constructive, difficult conversations is something that I'm very aware of. And I even like my strategy for them, and I'm not good at them per se. I write a script.
That's smart.
So and I can think of a couple of very specific instances where I verbatim spent hours writing down my thoughts.
Uh-huh.
And then, you know, I would boil them down to talking points. So I wasn't reading a script.
Well,
Dear so-and-so. But it's something that allows you to kind of maintain objectivity.
Yes.
And deliver the message in a way that it's meant to be delivered, hopefully in a very caring, constructive, actionable way.
Yes.
So that people can take this, so they're not just hearing, hey, you suck.
Right.
Right. That, you know, hey, this kind of was a misfire.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, this was kind of
here's the impact of it.
Right. And here's how you can course correct. Here's how you can think about it next time. Here's about, you know, what you might take from it. Yeah. And then, you know, doing some follow-up, because those conversations are not once and done, or they shouldn't be. Mm-hmm. It's like coming back to, you know, now that you've reflected on what we've talked about, what are your thoughts? Yes. And so, you know, because maybe there's some feedback that I can take as the person that's delivering that message and how I can better deliver that. So there's like kind of that constant cycle. So that's something that I think those difficult conversations, or I think Elise calls them courageous conversations. Yeah. And I think that's aptly named. It's appropriately named.
Yes.
So yes.
Yeah. Oh. Now, okay, another thing that I was thinking about on my drive in here this morning.
You think a lot on your drive.
I do. Yes. Yes. So, well, I have quite a distance to travel, so it gives me thinking time. But I was thinking about the fact that, and you've alluded to some of it already, but I feel like you have basically 2 jobs the way it looks here. You're real positive about it, but I'm like, that's a lot of work. So 2 jobs and 3 children and a husband, and you are training for the half marathon, the Pittsburgh Half Marathon, right? Mm-hmm. That's a lot. And I think about, and you travel a lot. I know you travel a lot. You're just always, it's like, where's Waldo? Like, I always look for you in images because I know you're there, but you're never in the spotlight. So I'm like, she's got to be in that picture somewhere. Where's Liz today? But it's a lot, and you're really successful at it. And so I would just like to hear your take on, how do you get this all done? How do you fit this all in a day, a week, a month?
Oh, it's not elegant. It's sometimes messy, and you know, time is my currency, right? Yes. Like, you got to figure out how you want to spend it.
Yes.
And I do have priorities, clearly.
That's important. Yeah.
Love my family, love my kids, love my job.
Yeah.
But sometimes 80% is enough.
Ooh.
And so
I like that.
So if the kitchen, and my husband would laugh at this, if the kitchen's not perfectly clean, you know, if the dinner was just kind of okay.
Okay. Yes. If we're eating leftovers tonight.
Right.
For the 3rd time this week.
You know, I made it to the game, but it was 10 minutes late.
Yes.
Or I'm taking a phone call while something else is going on. So I try to do like and I don't know if this is a best practice. This is just kind of how I function. Yeah. Is that I let things, it's not work-life balance. It's just kind of like life.
Yes.
And I love, I've said it, I love my job. I love the opportunities that I have. I was at my daughter's lacrosse game last night. One of my colleagues sat down beside me, and we were talking about something that she had done in the Ascend co-working space. Like, it's gorgeous. Cool. And so it naturally blends into like a work conversation. Then it comes right back to, you know, the girls, what they're playing, their upcoming game. And so it's just kind of how everything has been set up to just kind of work together. Yeah. And I don't know if that's been accidental or intentional, but I have been more intentional about how I spend my time and things that I want to do that are extras.
Yes. Like, well, I forgot that you also volunteer significantly in the community.
Well, I have the great pleasure of serving on the board of Pantry Plus More, and it really focuses on food insecurity in kids and in families. And I didn't have a ton growing up. I had a lot of love, but food was never anything that we worried about. Yeah. And so I can't even imagine what that's like. And so during the pandemic, you know, you watch these terrible stories of people lining up because of shortages, of people losing their jobs. And I remember making a very intentional decision. I'm just going to go volunteer this Saturday. And so I showed up, and they're amazing people that are running that organization. So I started volunteering for a number of years, and now I'm helping with their grant writing efforts. But I want to spend my time doing that.
Yes.
The training for the half marathon, I gave that to myself for my birthday.
Ooh.
Because I thought
what
about—
a gift. I think people are listening like, what? But she's got a deranged outlook on birthday presents.
But I'm sure you're guilty of this. How much time do you spend on you? Mm-hmm. And so I reframed it from the perspective of that, every training run, every whatever yoga class for recovery is for me.
Yes.
It's a present for me. So this 30 minutes, this hour, this so many hours on the long run.
Drinking hose water. It's a gift, really.
It is. It's a gift for me. Mm-hmm. I listen to my music. I listen to my podcast. I connect the dots in my head.
Yeah.
And so I try to be very intentional. And sometimes, and then I'm just always tired. I'm just always tired.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about the fact that you're drinking coffee as we're having this conversation.
This is my thing. I will drink black coffee all day long.
Me too.
My toddler, he's like, we joke. He's like, we wake up. He's like, Mama, you want coffee? I'm like, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
The routine.
Yes.
Hey, it definitely helps to fuel the day.
It is what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Forget to mention, hair and makeup's never done.
80%. 80%.
Right.
I think I'm going to adopt the strategy. I feel like I'm more like at 60%. So maybe my goal should be 80%. I'll work on that. Oh my gosh. What have we left on the table here? I have one final question for you before I get to that. What have we left on the table here today?
The one thing that I've really reflected on, and I've been blessed, there's so many things in your life you can't control, people, circumstances, whatever, but control what you can control and like really kind of lean into that and just, do things that you enjoy. Yeah. Like, I hope this comes across that I just really am thankful. I enjoy, I'm just so blessed to have so many wonderful people in my life, so many wonderful opportunities, and then just kind of paying it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aww. Okay, well, speaking of paying it forward, what my last question is, because we are talking about leadership today, what opportunities do you see for West Virginia, for West Virginians to lead and for people to really put their talents forward and moving the state forward?
Oh, I think about this all the time. There is so much going on in the state. Mm-hmm. You see, and I mentioned this earlier, but you see historic investments in energy. Yes. We are an energy state.
Yes.
There is energy transition happening.
Yes.
From that, there's opportunities, innovation, opportunities to lead from, a workforce standpoint to the innovation that's going to advance these energy outputs, these demonstration sites, these things that translate into major industry.
Yeah.
And then also the narrative that comes with that, that, this pivot that West Virginia is experiencing. There are opportunities in workforce. And I think we need to really, this is what keeps me up at night.
Yeah.
We're bringing all these great companies here. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of open jobs.
Yes.
We're losing some of our young people for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. All of these things connect.
Yes.
How do we fill
the gaps?
How do we bring this together? How do we make people aware? How do we translate and create opportunities that keep people here that want to be here? How do we translate the story of, there are so many, my colleague and I, we call it the to-dos. There's so many to-dos here in the state.
I know. And it's a great opportunity.
And so it's bringing all these things together and I think we've been guilty of this, like working in these silos, these vacuums, working in parallel with one another.
Yes. Duplication of effort.
Right. And all of these things, whether it's an effort in energy, an effort in healthcare, some of these underlying challenges, they overlap. Mm-hmm. So where can you take some of these best practices? Where can you think about interdisciplinary solutions? Yeah. And so I think the state is on that hockey stick up. But we need to make sure that trajectory continues. And so it's bringing, and we're seeing this, industry, higher ed, nonprofits, policy, bringing those people together, because you can't solve things in one arena.
No.
You've got to make sure it all makes sense, and everyone
Yes.
is, singing the same tune, and they may have different of opinions, but we all have kind of the ultimate goal in mind. So I think we're going to continue to see great investments in the state. We just need to capitalize on them. We need to leverage them. We need to make sure we're growing them in a way that really gives back to the state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for all of the amazing people that are, especially I think about the talent coming out of the universities
Yes.
right now, and keeping in mind, how can you use everything that you've learned so far and all the talents that you have to positively impact the state? I mean, there's just brilliant minds across the age spectrum.
Yeah.
From teenagers, and beyond. So how do you best use those gifts and make an impact? Because you can make an impact here, a huge impact.
You're so
here.
right. And this is where West Virginia affords you these opportunities that you can get involved. You can call and say, hey, I want to sit on that committee.
Yes.
I want to offer some feedback to this legislation.
Yeah.
I want to, I know this company is coming, and there's these economic development groups. Let me help welcome these great. Like, you can make an impact here,
Yes.
in a different way than you can in many other states.
Absolutely.
And it also builds this incredible network of people that you can just call up and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what I'm working on. And they take your calls. And that again, I said that before, but there's just such a magical thing about that. And it exists here.
It is different from other states.
Yeah.
And we can objectively say that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
My friend, I just love you. Thank you so much for being here.
It's been my pleasure.
Makes me happy. Anytime I get to spend with you, I'm just thrilled.
This was fun.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Can we do a lightning round to close out?
Oh my gosh. I'm nervous.
Don't be. This is the easiest part.
Okay.
It's 1 minute to answer as many open-ended questions as you can. It's about you. So, I mean, hopefully it's Yeah. Okay. What season best fits your personality?
Spring.
Okay. What's your most used emoji in text?
I don't use emojis.
Okay. I feel like we need to talk about that later. What book, song, movie, or podcast has the greatest impact on your life? Has had the greatest impact?
Oh my God, this is a hard one.
That's a stumper question.
There's a song that I'm running to right now. It's called Dust Bowl Dance by Mumford and Sons, and it's just kind of this grit. So I really like that.
And unbelievable from your student council. What's something about you that surprises people when they first hear it?
That I'm Canadian.
Yes.
And then I say sorry, and then it all connects.
Oh, there it is. Fill in the blank. I spend too much money on
my birthday parties.
Yes, she does epic birthday parties.
Yes.
And I've gotten to be a part of them, and they're amazing. What celebrity would you want to play you in a movie?
Oh, Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I could see that. She's coming to West Virginia.
Connecting the dots.
We'll have to make an introduction here because she would be perfect. Okay. Very good. That was a fast 60 seconds, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I didn't do very well.
No, you did well.
Okay, good.
I stumped you on that one question though, but yeah. Ugh. Okay. You just keep going out there and keep doing your thing. And I'm so thrilled for this time we have because I think it's being able to shine a light on you a little bit more and not have you hidden behind the scenes as much. So more people hopefully will know you now and the great work you're doing and the great work that is happening in West Virginia.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for telling these incredible stories. You've had such incredible guests on this show, and I loved it. I've loved watching them, and I love being part of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Very good. All right, everyone. Until next time, shine bright, everyone.